The show opens in a dystopian future where a revolutionary technology known as the feed is implanted in nearly everyone's brain. This advanced system allows users to share thoughts and emotions, stream music, and even view live video feeds from various locations. The feed is developed by Lawrence Hatfield, a brilliant tech genius from London. In the next scene, we meet Lawrence's family, which includes his wife, Meredith, and their two sons, Tom and Ben. At the moment, Ben is getting married to the love of his life, Miyu, and everyone appears to be in a celebratory mood. But Tom seems distracted, as he's listening to music through his feed and tuning out the surrounding noise. His attention shifts when he notices a beautiful woman named Kate, and he approaches her. They strike up a pleasant conversation, and Kate introduces him to her friends, Max and Evelyn, who are a couple. We soon learn that Evelyn also works at the feed HQ for Lawrence. In the middle of the speeches, a kitchen worker named Sarah bursts in and shockingly places a knife to Ben's throat. She appears distressed and complains about the voices she has been hearing in her head. But before she can do any harm, Tom distracts her by calmly talking to her, allowing Kate to sneak up from behind and snatch the knife. The authorities then take Sarah away, and the party quickly returns to its celebratory mood. The scene then cuts to a year later, where we see Tom waking up next to his pregnant wife, Kate. He then heads to work, and we learn that he is a psychologist who helps people struggling to adjust to life with the feed. While in his office, he is visited by Ben, who is now divorced from his wife and works at feed for his dad. Ben reveals that their dad desperately wants to talk to Tom for some really important work. Later, Tom meets his dad, who reveals that he wants Tom to look into the disappearance of Dmitry Garin. The missing man is the head of the Moscow hub and one of the feed's most important investors. Dmitry's son's feed has been mysteriously blocked, something that should be impossible, and the boy refuses to speak about what happened. With this, Tom travels to Moscow, where he meets Dmitry's family and his son, Anton. It turns out Anton has gouged out one of his eyes and is suffering from a form of dissociative amnesia. Tom speaks to the boy gently and eventually persuades him to reveal the events of the day his father vanished. Shockingly, one of Anton's memories shows Dmitry being brutally murdered by him. This causes Anton to break down in tears, and he scolds Tom for making him relive the memory. Soon after, Dmitry's body is discovered buried in the woods, and Anton is arrested. But it's clear he wasn't acting of his own conscious will. That evening, Tom goes out for dinner with Kate, Max, and Evelyn, where he talks about the day's events. Tom wonders if there's a connection between Sarah's breakdown and Anton's actions and asks Evelyn for insight, since she works at the feed. But Evelyn refuses to give him a clear answer, citing legal restrictions. As they chat, all of their feeds suddenly switch on, flooding their minds with horrifying scenes of poverty, political unrest, and war. The world is thrown into chaos, resulting in power outages, car crashes, and widespread panic. After the chaos subsides, Meredith steps in to do damage control, assuring the public that everything is under control. She attributes the incident to a possible cyber attack by the Resistors, a rebel group that refuses to connect to the feed. In another scene, Kate wakes up in the middle of the night and says someone is in her head. Shortly after, she goes into labor and heads to the hospital, where she gives birth to a baby girl, B. Later, Tom questions Kate about what she meant when she said someone was in her head. But Kate acts strangely and claims she never said anything like that, leaving Tom deeply concerned. Elsewhere, Lawrence visits Sarah in an asylum, where she is seen painting strange dots on the wall. He is then shocked to discover that she has also gouged out her right eye, just like Anton. In the following days, Kate begins experiencing strange sensations, and confides in her husband that something is wrong with her feed. The couple then approaches Evelyn, who investigates and discovers that Kate's feed is clear, but there is evidence that someone entered her mind while she was sleeping. To their shock, that person turns out to be Lawrence, who has been deleting her mundles, which are bundles of memories. This leaves the couple horrified, and Kate requests a hard copy of everything Lawrence has done. But Evelyn is reluctant to turn against her boss. Feeling desperate, Kate decides to take matters into her own hands and turns to Max for help. She asks him to contact his hardware guy to obtain a device that would allow her to download her memories onto a physical object. Kate wants to search through her own memories in hopes of discovering what Lawrence was trying to find. The next day, Tom meets with Lawrence and confronts him about being inside his wife's head. Lawrence tries to make excuses, and he apologizes, saying it made him feel closer to his granddaughter. But this only enraged Tom further, and he doesn't believe in his father's words. He firmly believes Lawrence's actions are connected to what happened to Sarah and Anton. Afterward, Tom visits the asylum and finds Sarah in a trance-like state. He tries speaking to her, but she doesn't respond and completely ignores him. Later, Tom approaches Anton, who also refuses to talk much. Tom takes him for a walk and shows him Sarah and explains what happened to her. He warns Anton that if he continues to stay silent, he might end up like her and urges him to reveal what happened so they can help him. However, when Anton sees Sarah, he reacts strangely, as if he recognizes her. He then refuses Tom's help, claiming that he deserves whatever punishment is coming for what he did to his father. Elsewhere, Ben summons Evelyn to his office, where he accuses her of downloading and deleting data from the company's server. Evelyn denies any wrongdoing, but Ben shows her footage of Max in a shady neighborhood and questions what he was doing there. He suspects Max may be connected to the resistors and asks Evelyn if she's involved as well. Their argument escalates until Lawrence arrives and interrupts the questioning, stating that he trusts Evelyn. Elsewhere, Tom is speaking with a staff member at the asylum when he notices on the CCTV that both Anton and Sarah are left alone in the common room. The two then exchange a look as if they recognize each other. Tom instantly senses something is wrong and rushes to the location, but he's too late, as Anton unexpectedly snaps Sarah's neck without saying a word, killing her instantly. Tom pleads with the boy to stop, but Anton uses his handcuffs to slit his own throat, ending his life as well. Devastated, Tom later shows the recording of the incident to his parents before heading home. When Tom returns home, he is met with shocking news from his wife. Kate reveals that she's figured out why Lawrence has been deleting her mundles and entering her mind. It turns out Lawrence secretly installed the feed in their newborn baby without their permission. This leaves the couple horrified, and they decide to flee the city and search for a way to remove the feed from their child. Elsewhere, Max sleeps peacefully until he suddenly clutches his head in intense pain before drifting back to sleep. The next day, Kate and Tom travel to a farm outside the city where Max and Evelyn are currently staying. On the way, Kate stops by her sister Martha's home and tells her they're going away for a few days for a digital detox, though she doesn't reveal the real reason. Meanwhile, the outside world is in chaos, with protests erupting everywhere against the feed and people growing increasingly violent. In response, Meredith meets with the president to discuss the escalating situation and explore possible solutions. However, the president downplays the protest, insisting it's nothing more than a temporary distraction, and remains focused on economic interests. Elsewhere, at the farm, Max is seen behaving strangely when he falls into a trance-like state and accidentally cuts himself in the kitchen, but he quickly snaps back to reality just as Tom and Kate arrive and excitedly greet them. Later, Tom speaks to Max privately and asks about his contacts who might be able to permanently extract the feed. This shocks Max, who warns that it's an invasive, highly dangerous, and illegal procedure. Despite this, Tom remains determined, so Max suggests he relax for the weekend and think it through. He also shares that he's planning to propose to Evelyn, prompting Tom to congratulate him. On the other hand, Ben examines Sarah and Anton's mundles and discovers strong similarities in their brain activity during sleep cycles. He thus asks Lawrence to provide the algorithm's results to search for other matches. Using this data, they discover other violent cases in which the attackers stabbed themselves in the eye afterward, cases that were previously attributed to passion or drugs. Meanwhile, Meredith is in a meeting when a stranger suddenly breaks in and makes an unsuccessful attempt on the president's life. Protesters soon take over the building, causing confusion and alarm among them. Amid the chaos, Meredith's trusted employee, Gil, helps her quietly escape and leads her to a safe place. Back at the farm, the group is having a good time, but it seems like Max is becoming increasingly unstable. At one point, Tom tells him about the incident with Anton, and Max unexpectedly begins crying. This confuses the hell out of Tom, but he doesn't think much of it and brushes it off. In another instance, Max stands in front of Bee and ominously stares at her. It seems like he's about to hurt her, but fortunately, Kate shows up just in time to take care of the baby. Elsewhere, we see that Ben has created a virtual replica of his wife, Miyu, and often talks to her to ease loneliness and engage in intimate moments. He then complains about how hard he works to impress his dad, yet his dad only cares about Tom, so the replica comforts him through his pain. After the conversation, Ben goes to the real Miyu's place and begs for a second chance, but she's not interested in him anymore and refuses to talk. Back at the farm, Tom decides to take Bee on a drive to help her fall asleep, and Max also offers to join them. During the drive, Tom once again presses him to share the name of the person who extracts feed. Max responds that his mate Abel might know someone and gives his address, but before he can say more, he suddenly begins to feel an extreme headache and loses control of the car. Max senses something is about to go wrong and urges Tom to run immediately. The panicked Tom grabs his daughter and flees, but in a shocking turn, Max pulls out some bows and arrows from the car and starts shooting at him. Moments later, one of the arrows hits Tom in the shoulder and injures him. Max then comes to his senses for a few seconds and says he doesn't know what's happening. Tom hides in the woods and pulls the arrow out of his body, but Max soon catches up to him. They get into a fight, and just when it seems like Max is about to finish Tom, he is unexpectedly shot in the shoulder by someone. It turns out to be Kate, and we also see a distraught Evelyn in the background, safely holding the baby in her arms. In the next scene, Max wakes up alone in one of the cells at the Feed HQ with his hands tied. Outside the room, Lawrence, Tom, Evelyn, and Ben discuss what they should do with him. Lawrence wants to put him into a coma so they can evaluate his violent episode through the feed, but Evelyn is against this. Max then apologizes for what happened and begs them to let him go, but they believe it is all an act, and that the person inside Max's body is someone else. Later, Lawrence goes to speak with him and tries to talk about what happened in the woods. Max nervously reveals that he doesn't know, but when Lawrence gets closer, he suddenly gets aggressive and ends up headbutting him. On the other hand, Kate goes to find a man named Abel, who may help her in removing her and B's feed. She eventually finds him, and after explaining her situation, the man takes her to a group of resistors hiding underground and fighting against the system. Back in the Feed HQ, Tom speaks to Max, who pretends to be innocent and doesn't recall doing anything. He also expresses his worries that he doesn't want to end up like Anton and Sarah, but Tom tricks him by reminding him how he saved them during the wedding when Sarah attacked them. Max agrees and laughs, which finally makes Tom realize that this is not his friend, and his brain has been hacked by someone else. Lawrence then asks for his real name, and the man just says Dar before stopping himself. Meanwhile, Kate meets with the Resistors leader, Tia, who agrees to help but doesn't understand why she no longer wants the feed. She has high suspicions of Kate, since she is the daughter-in-law of the Hatfields. Kate then reveals that the Hatfields implanted the feed in her daughter without permission, but Tia still doesn't believe her. But their conversation is suddenly interrupted when a raid happens, and the cops arrive to arrest the Resistors. Amid the chaos, Kate manages to help Abel escape, but is unable to stop Tia from getting beaten up by the cops. Elsewhere, Ben meets up with Miyu at a restaurant, and again begs her to take him back, but she refuses and mentions that she is actually seeing Gil, who works at Feed. This enraged Ben, and he starts cursing angrily at the man, prompting Miyu to get annoyed and walk away. On the other hand, Abel takes Kate to meet a doctor who can extract the feed successfully. He reveals that they can only do the procedure for £10,000, which must be paid in jewelry to avoid being traced. Kate needs some time to think, but the doctor says the surgery must be done tomorrow, as they don't stay in the same place and keep moving. This leaves Kate with no choice but to book an appointment for the next day. Meanwhile, at the Feed HQ, Evelyn tells Lawrence about a program called SAVEYOU that might bring the old Max back. The plan is to connect Max's transmitter to the servers, delete the bad data from his mind, and upload that data to the cloud for storage. Lawrence warns that they've never done this on a human before, and it could be risky, but Evelyn says they have no other choice. They then sedate Max against his wall, and get ready for the surgery. With this, they sedate him against his wall, and prepare to begin the high-risk procedure. Later that evening, Kate tells Tom about the secret doctor, and suggests he come with them, as it's their only chance to delete the feed. But Tom asks her not to do it yet because he's trying to figure out the source of feed, and they may not need the procedure at all. He asks her to wait until Max wakes up, so Kate tells him he has until tomorrow morning to make a decision. Elsewhere, Ben watches memories of his wedding with Miyu, and attempts to delete the app he's been using for his fantasies. But no matter how many times he tries, the app refuses to delete, leaving him frustrated. His heart sinks when he realizes that the app itself is corrupted, meaning that he might be the one responsible for the original breach. The next morning, Max wakes up from the surgery, and Evelyn asks him some private questions about his life. Max answers all of them correctly, which means the intruder is finally gone. Afterwards, Tom approaches his dad and tells him that what he did was genius. He then requests to take part in an experiment involving Sarah's transmitters, as he wants to find out what really went wrong. Lawrence agrees and hooks Tom up to a machine connected to Sarah. Meanwhile, Kate finally decides to go to the doctor since her husband didn't show up as he promised. The doctor tries to remove parts of the technology, while the nurse asks her simple questions during the procedure to keep her alert. Later, we see Tom reliving Sarah's memories through a series of perspective shots, but he soon wakes up in shock and tells Lawrence that the memories he experienced don't belong to her. He believes her feed was hacked and that someone else must have been controlling Sarah, when she was alive. After this, he immediately tells his wife to remove the feed from her, and rushes to find her. Not long after, Tom arrives at the location where Sarah is undergoing surgery. The nurse is still asking her questions about her life, but this time Kate struggles to answer immediately, and hesitates. She also loses all feeling in her leg and can't even recall her daughter's name, which means her memory is beginning to fade. This indicates that the feed is deeply embedded, and the damage is irreversible. Removing it could cause permanent brain damage, so they have no choice but to stop the procedure. This devastates Kate, and she pleads with the doctor to at least remove the feed from B so she can be protected. Elsewhere, Ben is at home, where he tries multiple times to delete the virtual companion app. He still can't remove it. Gil requests to speak with him, so Ben hastily ends the connection to avoid raising suspicion about his strange behavior. In another scene, we return to Kate and Tom, who want to remove the feed from their baby. The doctor examines B but shockingly reveals there's no implant to be found, yet the technology is inside her. This confuses the hell out of everyone, since it's impossible. The frantic Tom immediately calls his mom and insists on planning a family dinner. The scene then cuts to dinner, where Ben feels jealous watching how his parents drop everything and are always available whenever Tom needs them. Meredith then reveals to Ben that they're very close to finding the source of the leak. Lawrence discovered an illegal ghost app in Sarah's old chip, which he believes is to blame for the problem. She also mentions several apps that can cause this, including Mindspeed, Snuff Room, and Virtual Companion, which scare Ben. Elsewhere, Max returns home after the procedure, and the couple tries to move past the horrible incident. At one point, Max pulls out the ring and apologizes to Evelyn for what happened at the farm. He then seizes the moment to propose to her for marriage, which Evelyn happily accepts. The scene then returns to the Hatfield family dinner, where Tom finally snaps and confronts Lawrence, asking why their baby has the feed but no hardware can be found. Lawrence then shockingly reveals that he didn't give it to B, but it was Tom himself. He explains that many years ago, he imprinted polymeric conductors in Tom's DNA, genetically enhancing him and enabling him to naturally pass the feed on to his children. This shocks Kate and Tom, and they're devastated to learn that B can never be made safe from the feed. Meredith admits she was aware of this, which makes Tom even more disgusted. Meanwhile, Ben grows jealous, wondering why his father implanted the enhancement DNA in Tom and not him. After the dinner, an annoyed Ben anonymously transfers a copy of the infected app to Gil, hoping to infect him too. Meanwhile, Tom confronts his dad about the ethical issues surrounding the feed. He insists that Lawrence is not God, but the latter tries to justify his actions by arguing that it's not an infection, but an enhancement. He reveals that he has secretly implanted it in several other people as well, and they've unknowingly passed it on to their children. Lawrence insists that people crave progress more than freedom, and claims his innovation will unite people under a common path and maintain control. He insists that someone would have done it eventually, so it was safer in the hands of someone who could control it responsibly. Elsewhere, we see Max and Evelyn at home, getting ready for bed. The two share a kiss before Evelyn heads to the bathroom, where she is suddenly attacked by a mysterious man. Later, a disappointed Tom goes to meet an important board member of the feed, Sue, and reports his father's actions. But Sue tells him that without overwhelming evidence, Lawrence is too powerful to bring down. With no other option, Tom takes an extreme measure and broadcasts his conversation with his father, publicly revealing his confession. The video exposes how Lawrence abused his power by secretly implanting thousands of people with the technology, which was then passed down to their children. The revelation triggers global outrage, and Lawrence is removed from his CEO position the next day. Afterward, an enraged Lawrence goes to confront Tom and accuses him of betrayal. He says everything he ever did was for Tom, and now he has turned against him and destroyed everything he built over 40 years. After a brief argument, Tom claims that his dad can't truly connect with anyone, not his wife, not even his children. Lawrence then shockingly says, "Your mother has children. I have a child," before storming off. In the next scene, we see that people are experiencing sleep glitches related to the feed, indicating that the hackers are becoming more dangerous. Meanwhile, Lawrence discovers he's been blocked from accessing his own feed, which deeply frustrates him. Elsewhere, Evelyn regains consciousness and sees a man named Eric holding a blade to her throat, while Max is tied up in bed. It turns out Eric works as a cleaner at the feed, but secretly, he's plotting against the system. He warns the couple that if either of them activates their feed, he will kill Evelyn and urges her to get dressed. Meanwhile, Gil is sitting in his car when officers suddenly arrive and arrest him aggressively, confusing the hell out of him. In another scene, Tom and Kate, exhausted from everything, plan to move to America to start a new life. They are supposed to meet Evelyn before heading to the airport, but can't seem to contact her. Meanwhile, at the Feed HQ, Gil's entire team is replaced and arrested on suspicion of a security breach. This worries Meredith, who trusts Gil completely, but Sue reveals they found an illegal app in his system, which is likely the cause of the leak. Not long after, Tom arrives to meet Meredith and apologizes for what he did, saying it was necessary. He tells her goodbye and then meets Ben, who is enraged at his brother's actions. Tom advises him that their father is no saint, and Ben should probably distance himself from him. But Ben, who idolizes their dad, doesn't agree and accuses Tom of turning against the family and abandoning them in this critical time. The brothers continue to argue until a frustrated Tom storms out of the office. Elsewhere, Kate arrives at Evelyn's house to meet her and knocks on the door, but no one answers. Inside, Eric is holding the couple at knife point and urging them to stay quiet. Kate eventually lets herself in, but by this time, all three of them are gone. She is shocked to find blood on the carpet and a ring engraved with Eric and his wife's initials. At this moment, Tom also arrives, and the couple realizes that something terrible is happening. Meanwhile, Eric is seen forcing the couple to drive toward Feed HQ, where he plans to bypass the security system using Kate's credentials. Returning to the Feed HQ, Gil is being questioned by Sue about the illegal app and whether he's involved with the resistors. Gil denies any involvement, but Sue doesn't believe him and suspects he might be jealous of the Hatfields. Outside the room, Ben and Meredith are watching the tense interrogation. Ben insists that Gil is definitely guilty, but Meredith disagrees and tells Ben to start focusing on finding the real culprit. Elsewhere, Lawrence invites a journalist into his home for an interview. He claims to be more intelligent than most people, that his brain processes information faster, and is more advanced than the average mind, and that he is a member of an elite group of 200 people. Lawrence insists that he is saving the world in the same way that brilliant minds before him have, and he requests that he be reinstated. Using Eric's ring, Tom and Kate manage to track down his home and get inside, hoping it will lead them to their friends. They discover a room where the walls are covered with the same name written over and over. A strange smell draws them to the closet, where they're horrified to find the corpses of a woman and a dog. They also notice the closet is filled with work jackets bearing the Feed's logo. Realizing the man is likely a Feed employee, they rush to the HQ, hoping to reach there in time. Elsewhere, Ben meets Miyu and shows her the shady simulation app he downloaded, claiming it belongs to Gil. Miyu does not believe this, but he insists they have evidence, and when Gil attempted to delete it, the file was corrupted. This really distresses Miyu, who can't believe her partner could betray her like this. At this moment, Eric, along with Max and Evelyn, arrives at the Feed HQ. Lawrence also arrives there upon Sue's request, who wants to solve the glitches on Feed, and if Lawrence has any insight. Lawrence requests access to his Feed, claiming that he can't figure this out without it, but Sue responds that she doesn't trust him. She asks for access to his files instead, and when he refuses, she summons officers to arrest him. As Lawrence is being escorted by the officers, Kate and Tom arrive and are shocked by the scene. Tom wonders what's happening when suddenly Eric shows up and lunges at Lawrence with a knife. Fortunately, Tom tackles Eric to the ground, and the latter accidentally stabs himself with his own blade and dies. Everyone lets out a moment of relief, but in a shocking twist, Max suddenly seizes the knife and repeatedly stabs Lawrence. The guards immediately shoot Max and take him down, but unfortunately, Lawrence succumbs to his injuries and dies. We then learn that the person inhabiting Max's body isn't actually Max himself, but the intruder who never left. At the same time, it is revealed that the Feed Save You app is no longer effective on users, meaning the dangerous and violent glitches will continue to escalate further. In the following scene, Tom, Meredith, and Ben gather for the reading of Lawrence's will. The lawyer pauses at a specific clause addressed to Tom and asks Ben to step out for a moment. This irritates Ben, who demands to know what's being hidden from him. Reluctantly, the lawyer continues and reads the clause, which reveals that Lawrence has left all his personal files to his biological son, Tom. The revelation devastates Ben, who is heartbroken to learn that the man he idolized his whole life wasn't even his real father. Meredith, who is Ben's biological mother, is also upset that her husband would include such a painful truth in his will. With this, Ben is overwhelmed with emotion, while his mom and brother try to comfort him, saying they're still a real family. But this only enraged Ben further, causing him to storm out. Later, Tom heads to the Feed HQ, where he learns that Gil and several others are being transferred to a prison on Sue's orders. This really disappoints Tom, and he promises Gil that he will help get him released soon. Meanwhile, around the world, The stability of the feed is under threat, as many individuals begin to experience seizures and get violent. Amid all the chaos, several feed resistors, led by Tia, wear high-tech invisibility suits as they break into the feed HQ. Surprisingly, Kate is with them, and they end up incapacitating guards using electromagnetic pulse stunners. It turns out that their goal is to hack into a private server and broadcast the financial details of 3 million people worldwide. They believe this will expose people's private information and shatter their trust in the feed. Elsewhere, Evelyn arrives at the feed HQ and meets the imposter Max, known only as D, though he miraculously survived the gunshot. He is still in pain, so Evelyn unplugs the IV, delivering his pain medication to make him suffer. She demands to know when Max actually died, and he reveals it happened at the farm. He admits he still has access to Max's memories, which he's been using to manipulate Evelyn. An enraged Evelyn tells him he should have killed her when he had the chance before storming off. Meanwhile, Gil is imprisoned, having lunch, when another inmate approaches him. The inmate begins insulting him and even taunts him about Lawrence's death, which enraged Gil. He then responds by slamming the inmate's head into his hand, which leads to him being placed in solitary confinement. Elsewhere, Tia and the resistor group manage to sneak out of the feed HQ safely without getting caught. They return to their hideout, where Tia's small team launches their program and successfully broadcasts the financial data. However, this accidentally causes a massive power outage across half of London, including the prison, where the electronic door locks fail. This leads to all the prisoners being released, who begin killing guards and making their way to escape. Returning to the feed HQ, we see some escaped prisoners called the Takers being released from their cells. It turns out that the Takers are individuals whose consciousnesses inhabit the bodies of others, seemingly due to a malfunction of the feed. They are the ones responsible for hacking, killing people, and causing global chaos to create panic among the population. Meanwhile, Tom and Evelyn arrive at a red room and hide there along with B. A Taker then arrives out of nowhere and tries to hurt B, but Tom reacts quickly and immediately shoots before she can cause any damage. Fortunately, some police officers arrive and take Tom and Evelyn to safety. Elsewhere, Gil is seen sleeping peacefully in his room, but he is approached by the man he fought earlier. The man immediately attacks Gil with an iron bar and beats him badly, leaving him for dead. Later, Ben arrives at his mother's place while crying, which leaves her confused. Meredith asks what happened, and Ben finally reveals the whole truth about the virtual companion app. He reveals that he was the source of the leak, not Gil, which leaves his mother stunned and speechless. In another scene, Kate returns home, and her husband is upset with her for teaming up with the resistors and pulling the stunt that almost caused their daughter to get hurt. Kate apologizes, saying she didn't know it would happen. Otherwise, she would have never gone there. She thinks it's all because of the feed, which controls too much, but this only enraged Tom, resulting in an argument between them. Elsewhere, we see Evelyn at her home, where she creates a hologram of Max to cope with her loss and sleeps alongside it. The next morning, Evelyn wakes up beside the hologram of Max and appears genuinely happy to see him. However, things take a disturbing turn when, all of a sudden, D appears within Max's body, which absolutely terrifies her. He calmly asks if they can talk and insists that he needs her help. D explains that Max is still alive somewhere deep inside and that there might still be a way to bring him back. Elsewhere, Meredith and Ben speak with an officer and reveal that Gil is innocent, as the app was planted into his feed without his knowledge. The officer demands to know who is responsible, and Ben says that they are conducting an internal investigation. However, the officer then delivers the grim news that Gil was murdered during the chaos the night before. When they are shown his body, Ben still insists it wasn't his fault, prompting Meredith to slap him hard and call him a coward. Meanwhile, Tom is going through his dad's bundle when he comes across a secret lab he's never seen before. He immediately sends Evelyn a message to inform her about it. Just then, Kate arrives with her sister, Martha, and it turns out the sisters plan to stay in a farmhouse arranged by Tia. Martha says the family should stick together and asks Tom to come with them, but he refuses, explaining that he has important matters to deal with. He then urges them to stay offline so they can't be tracked by the attackers. Returning to Evelyn's place, Dee is trying to convince her to help him and claims he is looking for his wife. It is revealed that the people whose bodies are taken over by the takers are not dead, and their consciousness is trapped in something called the Void. It's a hidden part of the feed network where minds remain alive, but disconnected from their physical bodies. Dee tells Evelyn that he wants her to find his wife in the Void, promising that they can do an exchange where she and Max can also enter the Void and be together forever. Upon hearing all this, Evelyn almost seems convinced, But just then, Tom shows up and sees them together. He asks her to read his mind and willingly follow the same path he took to form a connection. Evelyn hesitantly agrees, and as she connects, she sees a dark void, where Dee's wife, Stephanie, and thousands of others appear to be trapped. But their connection is abruptly interrupted when Tom intervenes and knocks Dee unconscious. Sometime later, Dee wakes up, and Tom asks him who he really is and what he wants. Dee reveals that Evelyn did some digging and discovered he actually died years ago. But Dee explains that it wasn't him, and it was just memories. At this point, a shocking twist is revealed. Dee and all the other takers were created by Lawrence, but he doesn't explain how. Upon hearing this, Tom asks why he killed his dad, and Dee reveals it was because Lawrence was planning to mass delete all these consciousnesses. Enraged, Tom ties Dee's hands and feet and puts him in the bathtub so he can't hurt anyone. He then heads off to find his dad's secret lab, while Evelyn stays behind. Tom soon arrives at the hedge maze on his father's estate, where he tries to recall his childhood memories, but can't seem to remember anything. Meanwhile, Kate and Martha, along with the baby, are driving on the outskirts of the city. Kate begins behaving very strangely, so Martha suspects her sister has been taken and asks her a bunch of personal questions. After some time, they eventually arrive at a remote farmhouse in a secluded area where they settle in. That evening, Ben and Tom hang out together and make amends for what happened in the past. Tom reassures him that they will always be brothers, and Ben apologizes for his previous rude behavior. The two then go to the hedge maze, where Ben begins to remember their childhood. In the end, they finally discover an underground bunker in the hedge maze, leaving them hopeful and excited. Elsewhere, Martha and Kate are seen spending some time together after putting the baby to sleep. Kate soon notices Martha pouring milk into her coffee and suddenly realizes that she's actually a taker since her sister doesn't like it. Worry immediately strikes Kate, and she hits the taker's head with a sharp object before rushing upstairs to her daughter's room. The imposter Martha follows her and asks what gave her away, saying they can't fool families for long. She then begins aggressively banging the door and demands that Kate let her in. Following this, the taker brings out an axe and uses it to break the door down and get inside. She then assures Kate she doesn't want to hurt her, and just needs her to track Tom and let her know where he is. But Kate refuses and scolds the woman for taking her sister, who had a life and kids. The taker then reveals that she, too, had a life and a daughter and would give anything to see her again. Kate still refuses to cooperate, so the taker grabs a weapon and tries to strike her. But just then, someone pulls up their car outside, so the taker leaves to deal with the situation. From the window, Kate notices that it's one of her sister friends, who has brought some supplies for their stay. The taker then goes to greet him casually, and introduces herself as Kate's sister. Meanwhile, we see Tom and Ben finally arriving at their dad's secret lab, and trying to figure out what Lawrence was doing here. While exploring the place, they accidentally trigger an AI called Albay. There are almost 300 files that are related to various programs, including fetal monitoring, genetic replacement therapy, thought unification, AI soldiers, neurological distribution matter, and many more. One of the files is related to the beta trial of SAVEYOU, and an experimental medical procedure involving consciousness manipulation. However, the file appears to be corrupted, so when Ben asks the system to explain the corruption, Alba responds by playing a looping set of disturbing footage of famine, poverty, and war. After further investigation, the brothers discover that the subjects of the experiment were dead people who had donated their feeds for use after their deaths. The program stored not only memories, but also thoughts, feelings, and, ultimately, the essence of the individual. Lawrence had manipulated over 15,000 of these people to perform various tasks, such as improving mathematical abilities and decreasing empathy. However, at some point, the participants in the experiment gained autonomy, and they started reproducing. There are now over 4 million, and the number is still growing. These self-aware digital beings are what came to be known as the Takers. With this shocking revelation, Tom tries to delete the files to wipe out all the Takers, but he cannot. So, he and Ben summon Evelyn to the site to look into the matter. Back at the farm, the resistor guy notices blood on imposter Martha's head, and asks what happened. But she makes an excuse, saying she fell down the stairs after being spooked by a squirrel. The guy says he'll look into the squirrels, but she refuses, claiming she can take care of herself. He proceeds to leave, but soon grows suspicious, and tries to approach her again. He begins asking questions, so the annoyed taker grabs an axe and immediately kills him, while Kate watches in horror. Meanwhile, a fragment of Kate's message manages to get through to Tom, warning him about Martha's situation. Back at the lab, Evelyn arrives and concludes that the damaged files are actually shielded by an advanced encryption that prevents them from being erased. She proceeds to extract the SAVEYOU file in hopes of cracking the encryption. and finding a way to eliminate the takers. Just then, Tom receives a message from Kate informing him of the immediate danger. The worried Tom then sets off for the farmhouse to protect his family, and Ben also decides to join him. Back at the farm, Kate somehow makes it to the car with her baby and tries to drive away, but the taker suddenly appears right in front of her, claiming it's her sister's body and that she shouldn't hurt her. But Kate doesn't care and drives straight through the woman, managing to injure her badly. Unfortunately, she also crashes into a nearby tree, leaving herself injured as well. Not long after, Tom and Ben finally arrive at the farm and find the imposter unconscious in the front seat, while B is in the back. Tom wakes the taker and demands to know where his wife is, but she refuses to say anything. Tom then rushes off to find Kate, while Ben stays behind with B while also keeping an eye on the taker. Elsewhere at Evelyn's place, we see that D is still in the bathtub, and while desperately trying to remove his ties, he accidentally turns on the tap. This begins to fill the tub with water, which sends him into panic mode. Back at the farm, the taker is left alone with Ben and tries her best to manipulate him. She seems to know everything about him, such as how he's jealous of his brother and has never truly been loved by their dad. She then reveals that inside the void with Alba, she witnessed everything Lawrence did to Tom. She begs Ben to take her to the secret lab, promising she'll enhance his DNA to make him as intelligent as his brother. Ben wonders how that's even possible, and she reveals it only requires Lawrence's DNA, which they can easily get from B. At the same time, Tom is in the woods when he finally finds his wife, disoriented and badly injured. He gently comforts her, and they rush to the car to look for their baby. But when they return, both the taker and Ben are gone, along with the baby. A horrified Tom immediately calls the cops, then tries to calm Kate down, assuring her that Ben wouldn't harm their child. Elsewhere, we see Ben and the taker on their way to the lab, and he uses the opportunity to inquire about her life. The woman then reveals her real name is Michaela Green. She died at the age of 27, and she had a little girl named Ellie in a previous life. Not long after, the two are pulled over by a cop who grows suspicious upon noticing Michaela's bleeding forehead. Ben quickly lies, claiming that his brother had become a taker and attacked them, so they fled to seek safety. However, the officer doesn't buy the story and begins asking more questions, prompting Michaela to suddenly stab him. This horrifies Ben, who begins to have second thoughts, but Michaela forces him to keep driving, insisting that he has a greater purpose in the world she intends to build. Sometime later, the duo finally arrives at the lab, where an injured Michaela holds the baby. She then shockingly reveals that they don't actually need B, and she's merely bait to lure Tom in, as he's the one they truly need. Meanwhile, Tom and Kate arrive in the city and proceed directly to the hospital. Doctors take an injured Kate away, while she pleads with Tom to find B. Just then, Tom receives a message from Ben, who reveals that the taker's real name is Michaela, and she once had a daughter named Ellie. He urgently tells Tom to come to the underground lab immediately before Michaela harms B. On the other hand, Evelyn is seen at Feed HQ, where she creates a duplicate of Stephanie's profile and deletes the original. She then returns home, where D is nearly drowned in the bathtub until she turns off the tap, stopping the water. Evelyn reveals she did some digging and discovered his real name is Darian Charles. She threatens to destroy the last remaining copy of Stephanie unless he tells her how to erase SAVEYOU. Terrified, Darian gives her the information, and Evelyn immediately passes the info to the Feed Corporation, revealing how the company can finally fight the SAVEYOU virus. On the other hand, Tom finally arrives at the lab, where he finds Michaela holding the baby. She urges him to get in the chair in the center of the room, but Tom refuses and demands that she let go of B first. He then offers her a deal, saying he can help her get Ellie back, but if she harms B, he'll have nothing left to lose. Fortunately, Michaela is too weakened by her head injury to resist. She reluctantly hands over the baby and soon collapses dead, succumbing to her wounds. Afterward, Ben apologizes to Tom for his actions and tries to blame everything on their father. He bitterly complains that Tom has everything, especially a family, while he has nothing. But a furious Tom begins scolding him harshly, so Ben orders Tom to sit in the chair so they can finally see what made him so special. When Tom refuses, Ben strikes his brother and knocks him unconscious. Elsewhere, Darian demands that Evelyn return his wife, but she insists he'll have to wait until she's certain the process has worked. She then questions how she can bring Max back, but Darian coldly admits it's impossible, and he was just lying to her. Devastated by the news, Evelyn breaks down and burns Stephanie's remaining data right in front of him. This distraughts Darian, and he swears he'll kill her for what she's done. In another scene, Tom finally regains consciousness and awakens to find himself restrained in the chair. He begs Ben to stop, but he doesn't listen and plugs him into the device anyway, activating Alba. Tom attempts to turn off Alba but is overruled by the takers, who are embedded in the system. Tom begs Ben to turn off the machine, But Ben refuses and allows the program to start. This transforms Tom into a gateway, allowing millions of takers to pass through, and the consequences are felt around the world. When the feed system crashes, it triggers a massive chain reaction that shuts down power grids around the world. This results in the death of millions of people, who are then quickly replaced by the takers. Moments later, the system finally shuts down, and Ben releases his brother from the restraints. But an angry Tom immediately attacks Ben and blames him for the death of millions of people. Tom is about to hurt him, but suddenly Bee begins to cry and snaps her dad back to reality, then apologizes and says the feed will come back on. But Tom insists it won't. Next, Tom takes his child and leaves his idiot brother behind. He decides to find Kate so they can leave the country for good. We see Ben pathetically pleading with him for forgiveness, but Tom doesn't care and drives off. The show then concludes on an ambiguous note, leaving the audience with lingering questions about its characters and the future of society.